Welcome to the video where Fake News makes a tier list. That's right, I think I'm the last person in the GU community to do one for the new set, Band of the Wolf. Let's go ahead and talk about the tier list. So the way I'm going to categorize things is very basic. The top tier is going to be needs nerf. This card is broken as it exists now. We need to nerf the card, otherwise it's just unhealthy for the game. Strong cards are going to be seen by a lot of the top players in the game. They're going to be running them in their decks if they more or less archetype defining cards. Not necessarily every deck in that class, but every deck of the specific archetype should be running those cards. Niche cards are going to be something that some strong players can consider to run, but not an auto include in more of the 28th, 29th, 30th edition into a list. Not always going to be run. Budget niche is going to be something that free-to-play players, people who don't have a full collection, might consider running that as their 28th, 29th, 30th card in very certain situations. But generally speaking, top players will not be playing this card. Only bad players is self-explanatory. It's a really bad card that will actually be kind of a trap card for people in the lower ranks who will incorrectly think that it's somewhat decent in play. And then the bottom rank is no players. I don't think anyone's going to put this in their deck. So those are the list. Let's go ahead and get into the cards. To kick off the review, we're going to start off with Retribution. Retribution is a 1-mana war card that deals 2 damage to a creature, and if there are 3 or more Olympians in your void, it deals 6 damage instead. It's the classic 1-mana answer to a Demogorgon that Control War was desperately needing. I think this card definitely has some sort of potential in Olympian War. Kind of a specific, narrow way of looking at things. Could it find a place in Control War where there's some debate, because there are a lot of Olympians in that already. Because of this, I'm in between the tiers I should put this in strong and niche. I'm going to put this in niche because I don't think you can play this in traditional Control War, and I think that to put it into strong, Olympian War needs to be a thing. And based on what I've seen, it won't be. This will be played in Olympian War, but I don't think Olympian War is going to be anything more than a meme. Keeping with the Olympian War theme, the next card we're looking at is Ashen Child. Ashen Child is a 1-mana 2/1 war-specific minion. Afterlife gives this creature strength and health to a random Olympian in your hand. So the meme dream is that you play Out of Its Misery, you get this to be a 1-mana 5/4, and then after it dies, it gives +5/+4 stats to something in your hand. I think that exact scenario is exactly as it sounds. It's a completely meme dream. The old God Power Intense Training could have maybe made this thing work. This will be used in some meme capacity. Do I think it will be top meta relevant, or do I think that this is going to be very strong at all? No, I do not. So I'm actually in between 2 tiers on this card as well. I'm in between niche and budget niche, but I don't really consider it a budget card. I'm going to call it niche. Again, maybe into the Olympian War theme, you can make it somewhat okay, but to me, it's just not going to be in top meta decks. Next up, we have our first ally card of the set that we're reviewing. It's a 2-mana 2/3 Olympian with ally, set a creature's strength equal to its health. So ally is going to be a new keyword that whenever a minion comes into play during your main phase, basically non-end of turn phase from the way I understand it, this ability will trigger. So you can trigger ally multiple times in a turn if needed. So this one's interesting. You're giving up a slight bit of stats, but you do have the Olympian tag, and you do have the ally ability, which kind of goes along with it. To me, this is okay, but I think this is more or less a budget card, the way I look at it. I don't think that good players are going to be playing this card, quite frankly, but a budget free-to-play Olympian deck, I think this card can definitely fit. Next up, we have one of the most hype cards in the set. 7 mana Ember Oni. It's a 7 mana 5/7 Nether with Leech, Burn 2. Roar, deal 2 damage to each other creature and give them Burn +2. So this is being nicknamed the Poor Man's Demogorgon. And this is kind of going to be a hot take because I don't think this card's very good at all. It's a neutral 7 mana card. It's a poor man's slight AoE. It doesn't put things to sleep. Very hyper situational the way I look at it. A little bit understated in my opinion. It's basically a 7 mana 5/5 the turn it comes into play because of the burn 2. So to me, this card is nothing more than a budget niche card. I know a lot of people are going to give me heat over this, but I don't see it being played by top players once they realize that it's not very good. Next up, we have the Beast Fury Protege. This is a 2 mana 3/2 nature specific Amazon with ally summon a 1/1 Spirit Hound. So basically, maybe in some sort of Amazon deck, you can try to slot this in. The thing is there's a lot of decently statted early Amazons, so no good player is actually going to play this card. To me, this looks like the definition of a very trappy card that bad players will fall for the trap, but no good players are going to play this card. To me, it's an only bad players card. Next up is Blood Oath Binder. This is a 1 mana 1/3 class neutral Olympian. Ally gain +1 strength and add 2 injured soldiers to the void. So they're trying to have some sort of void synergies with Olympians in the void. They have some things with light and war in the past where you can get some synergy out of this, but this is just a 1 mana 1/3 that can become a 1 mana 2/3 conditionally. To me, I just don't like the power level of this card and think that ultimately it's going to be a trap card for weaker players and only bad players will play this. Next up, we have Great Eye's Blessing, which is a 5 mana nature card. Add a base copy of each friendly creature to your hand. Refresh 1 mana for each card added this way. To me, this is ultimately just a win more card, and I don't rate win more cards very, very highly. I don't see a application for this card, particularly with nature. You don't really have combo mechanics within nature. So for me, this card is going to be our first card in the no players. I just can't come up with an application for the card. Next up, we have Perseverance. Perseverance summons 3 1/1 zombies to attack a target. If a zombie summoned this way is destroyed, summon another zombie. So for 4 mana, you could effectively get 6 zombies, and this particularly works very well with the Harvester, which you might not think is a very, very big deal until you realize another card later in the set. So I do think that there is some potential in this, in kind of the combo death archetype. I personally don't think that this will be the prevailing top pick. That being said, I do see potential. So because I see potential, and because it's definitely not budget, and I don't put, this isn't really a bad player's trap card, I'm going to put it niche. I think that it can be played, and it's not terrible. Next, we have Aiko the Undaunted Duelist. This is a 4 mana 5/2 with Protected. And Roar, destroy your opponent's relic ability, deal damage equal to this creature's strength. Yeah. So basically, the way this card works is it's 5/2, it's protected, you kill a relic. When it attacks, it can ignore frontline because it's an ability that just deals damage. And when you're trading into other minions, you're not trading. You're not actually getting hit. This card, very, very, very strong. I think the base stats are overall too strong. They need to nerf this down to, I think, a 3/2 or maybe a 2/2. And then maybe it's okay because it's niche relic hate and the stats aren't overwhelming. To me, you've got top tier stats. a top tier ability, and then, oh yeah, we're just killing relics as well. So for me, this card becomes the first card that is going to go into the needs nerf tier. I don't think in its current state is going to be healthy for the game long term. Next up is a magic specific card. It's a 2 mana, add 2 1 mana 1/1 base copies of a friendly structure to your hand. There are applications where maybe you can kind of get this to work, but it's kind of weird. To me, the interesting one is the Divine Coconut, but then you're still just shuffling cards back into your deck, and yeah, I just don't see this being that strong. I'm debating on whether or not being nice to the card or being mean to the card. And when you have to debate, I'm just going to be mean. I'm just going to say that, hey, only bad players are going to try to make structures work. You just don't try to build the wall. It's just not going to work. Next up, we have Gamma Lord of Berries, or about to be everyone's least favorite card in Gods Unchained in the balance chat. I'm just going to tell you that this card is going to generate the most complaints from balance chat. I'm not saying it's the best card in the set, it just will. 5 mana, 4/5, hidden for 1 turn. After a friendly nether damages your opponent's god, pull the top card from your opponent's deck to your hand. So you play this with 2 nethers already on the board, then go face. You take 2 cards from them, and oh yeah, by the way, this is a 5 mana 4/5 with hidden. You're not giving up base stats much, and you're getting tons of value. To me, this card is the definition of something that needs a nerf. This is going to be very toxic and something that I look forward to playing with and making people cry on day 1 of the expansion. This goes all the way to the top. Needs a nerf. Next we have Shrike Moonlighter. This is a 3 mana, 3/3, hidden for 1 turn. Ally, pull the top card of your opponent's deck to your hand. This mechanic is going to be hated by everyone facing Deception. The thing that I like about this card is a 3 mana, 3/3 with hidden, so you're not really giving up stats much at all. And every nether you play just generates so much value. So for instance, if you have 5 mana, you play this and 2 Shadow of Lethodons, you steal 2 cards from your opponent's deck. It is very annoying. And these stealing cards is a much, much more annoying thing than Hierophant Silence, which just copied it. I'm very close to putting this card into the needs nerf tier, but I don't think it's quite that toxic. The condition of having to play nethers alongside it. Gamma Lord of Berries kind of works by itself and doesn't need help. You can just play Gamma, attack its face, hide it, attack its face, hide it. This, you do need other nethers in your hand to get value, but really, if you just have one other, I think you'd get in there. Next, we have another Deception card, a 4 mana, 3/2, hidden for 1 turn. After this creature leaves the board during your turn, gain control of a weaker enemy creature until end of turn. So, kind of like a delayed Umber Arrow in some ways, but the thing is your opponents can play around it. I think that part of the thing that's nice about Umber Arrow is the surprise factor. And the fact that this is not a surprise factor means your opponent can make arrangements to minimize the value of this card. 4 mana, 3/2 hidden. You're giving up someone's stats there. To me, this isn't a card that good players play, and I'm going to put it in the only bad players category. I think that it's niche enough that bad players will think it's good, but it's just not going to be run by anyone who knows what they're doing. Master of the Mill is a 5 mana, 4/5 Olympian. Roar, give 2 health to a friendly Olympian. An ally, give 2 health to the summoned creature. So there is a snowball effect here that makes it a trap card for weaker players. I don't think any good players will run this card. To me, it's just too slow to ultimately get to work. But that doesn't mean that I don't think anyone will try to get it to work. I just don't think that any good players will, putting this into the only bad players category. To me, this may be the most boring card in the set. This is a 3 mana, 3/4 Nether, ally, deal 1 damage to each god. Not much to think about here. The ally ability isn't really a net positive, it's a net neutral. So the Nether tag is worth a minor bit, but like Nether in, I don't know, budget niche, that's really the only category. It's a 3 mana, it's Hunt Warden. It's Hunt Warden with a Nether tag, let's be real. Next up, we've got Carrion Eater. After this creature attacks, it's a 2 mana class neutral card. It's a 3/2, and after you attack, you obliterate the top 2 cards of your opponent's void. If any of them are creatures, you gain +1 health. The thing is if you can play a 2 mana 3/2 and be able to attack with it, and it's late enough for your opponent to have anything in the void, that's a lot of conditions, then okay, you're probably winning already. To me, this is just a bad card. There's no upside. I'm putting it into the no players category. I think that even bad players know not to run it. So here is Wolf Recruits. 3 mana, draw a creature if it's another Olympian, draw another Olympian, give +1/+1 to each. So the way that I look at this is it's 3 mana, draw a card, which is terrible. If you're only running Olympians in your deck, it can be okay. But then I think you're making too many concessions in your deck list if that is what your deck list is. And the thing is even if you meet the conditions, 3 mana, draw 2 and give them both +1/+1 is, I mean, it's okay. It's somewhat viable. But to me, this is just a bad card. I don't see anyone getting this to work, so I'm just going to put it in the no players category. It's just bad to me. Next up, we've got Spirit Speaker Chime. It's a 4 mana 0/1 relic. But after your god takes damage, gain +1 durability. Ability, if the relic has 6 durability, you can use the ability summon for 6 3/3 Raccoonus Spirits and remove 6 durability. So they're just vanilla 3/3s. To me, this is just a bad card. You need to take so much damage, and then you get 4 3/3s, which flood your board. Death a lot of times has spatial issues with the amount of minions they're allowed to have on the board. This does not help that. Hyper conditional, very situational, and in a meta where everyone's going to be running Ico in their deck, to me, this just goes straight to the dumpster. I'm putting it right there in the bottom tier. Next, we have Rhinos the Old Wolf. This is a 5 mana 4/6 with Blitz. After this creature destroys another creature, give that creature strength and health to a random Olympian in your hand. Great card. Absolutely great card for Olympian War. However, I don't think it's necessary to only be Olympian War. That's what makes this very, very strong. You do have to have other Olympians in your deck, but there are Olympians that you can run, such as like Wolf Cult Vanguard, which would be very, very strong if it got buffed from this minion. So you run this into a 4/4 minion, you're giving +4/+4 to a minion in your hand. To me, very, very strong card, and I don't think it has to be tied to purely an Olympian synergy deck. Just a deck that is also running other good Olympians. Control War archetype, very, very strong. Obviously, aggro, Olympian type of stuff will be running this as well if those things ever become a thing. But I see this card, I'm going to put it into the strong tier. I might be underrating it here. It might be in the needs nerf a little bit later. But for now, strong tier, very good card. Here is the card I am most excited about and most feared and most curious about in the entire Band of the Wolf expansion. This is Bitter Endings, a death-specific class card for 3 mana, conditional if your god has 15 or less health. Add a 6 or 7 mana legendary death creature to your hand and set its cost to 0. If you do that, at the end of your next turn, take 15 damage. Well, so basically, this is you need to win right now type of card. But there's so much combo potential, so much finisher potential, and the fact that you can choose any 6 or 7 mana Death Legendary gives this so much versatility. To me, I can see this being a basically break the game type of combo card, and I can see it just not working and only be a meme type of card. I think that given the flexibility of the card, and given that you can choose when to play the card, I think it's going to be strong. I'm going to lean more to the strong side. I'm not saying it's going to break the game yet. This is another card I could be underrating. I'm going to put it in the strong tier. Very good card. Definitely can see it working with Perseverance potentially with the Harvester. There's so many interesting ways to maybe get bitter endings work, and it's what I'm looking forward to most experimenting with on Wednesday. So this is a 2-mana class neutral Amazon that's a 3/2 Afterlife summon a 1/1 Amazon recruit. This card doesn't initially appear very, very sexy. However, let's think about this for a second. For 2 mana, you're getting 4/3 worth of stats. You're getting a 3/2. After it dies, you get a 1/1. Not only that, in Amazon Tribal, you're summoning effectively 2 Amazons. You have the first wave of Amazon and then the second wave of Amazon. And against Amazons, the most important thing to do is remove their board, and this is so sticky. To me, this card, even though it doesn't appear super sexy, it doesn't jump off the page, this is going to be a meta staple. Pretty much all the free-to-play players are going to be running 2 of these in every single deck. I think that it probably actually needs a nerf, but I'm not going to put it on that tier. It doesn't break the internet like those cards, but it is a very strong card. And I'm going to put it in the strong tier. I think that it is a very good card. You're going to be seeing a lot of players run these, including Wales. Next up, this card actually wins you the game. For 3 mana, it's a 2/5 structure, and then your opponent runs out of time on their turn reading the text. Fun fact. Oh, no, never mind. It's a frontline that can't attack. After your opponent plays their first creature since this creature was summoned, obliterate it. Afterlife, your opponent summons a base copy of that creature. To me, it's okay. I mean, it's very, very weird and kind of niche. And honestly, with some weird things where you're maybe, I don't know. It's very, very weird. It is very, very weird. And maybe it wrecks certain combo decks out there. But ultimately, I also think that your opponent can use the ability on this card against you. They can put a minion out there and then kind of on their own terms get that out later. It's kind of like a, deposit or an anti-AoE thing for your opponent, because a lot of times you're going to be wiping the board as a Magic player. With that in mind, I am going to go ahead and say that this card represents the niche tier very well. Maybe it finds a spot, maybe it doesn't, and it's just an awkward card. Next up, we've got Poison Dart. For 4 mana, nature card, deadly, deal 1 damage to a creature. This is targeted removal for nature that mostly relies on RNG. Because of that, I do think that it might have some niche application. It's not OP, it's not super strong, it's not an auto-include, but it's something that maybe with your 29th and 30th card in your control nature deck, you toss in there, gives you a more reliable removal, but still doesn't deal with protected, ward, or armor, so there's a lot of things it doesn't kill. Next up is Village Vendor. This is a 2 mana 2/2 Olympian. Ally, gift +1/+1 to each Olympian in your hand. So there's a lot of snowball effect for this type of card, and it's very, very intriguing to me. If you're running basically an Olympian only deck, you play this, you play another Olympian, you buff your entire hand by +1/+1. I can see this kind of getting some sort of value. To me, I don't think it breaks the internet, but it's not a bad card in the right circumstance. I'm going to go ahead and say this is niche tier. Next up, we've got Faith Thornblade. Faith Thornblade is a 3 mana nature 2/4 Amazon ally, deal 1 damage. So you're running this with a lot of Amazons. Ideally, I guess you pair this up with a Pixie and then it turns into Machine Gun Pixies or something like that. To me, this is way too situational and it's kind of one of those classic trap cards. The 3 mana 2/4 stat line lacks a lot. And because of that, I think that the only people who are going to play this are bad players. Next up, we have Automarbun, the 1 mana 2/2 structure automatic bunny. I love the artwork. Ally, give +1 armor to the summon creature, so when you summon structures, they're getting armor. I can definitely see this kind of popping off with the next card that's being introduced, and I might as well go ahead and do a 2-for-1 and talk about the next card being introduced, which is also going to be Gimmerot, Boon Tinkerer. It's a 4 mana 2/3 magic structure. Ward armor 1. After you summon a structure, add a 1 mana 1/1 copy of it to your hand. So you put this out there with your Automabuns and you spam the board and get all this armored bunnies and stuff like that. And does that accomplish anything? This I do not know. But it's a meme. I'm gonna be nice. I'm gonna be nice because I love the bunny. I'm gonna say both of these go into the niche tier. Just maybe make it work. I don't know. I'm not very confident though. So this is a card. Next one we're reviewing, 2 mana Dark Deliverance. This is something I've tried to in my head theory craft to make it work. Pull a friendly Nether from your board to your hand. If you do, you summon a 1/1 Lay Shadow, which if you summon another Nether, then you can bounce one of your opponent's minions back to their hand. To me, it's so situational and so kind of random. And there's a card in this game for 2 mana where you can trapdoor your opponent's minions back to their own hand, and nobody ever plays that card. And this is strictly worse, in my opinion, than trapdoor. It's strictly worse than trapdoor. Maybe trapdoor should get more love. It's somewhat viable in hyper situational circumstances. To me, this is a worse version of a card that's never played, so it goes in the no players category. So I've asked around in the community for ruling on this one, and I'm going to judge my rating based on how I believe this interaction is going to work. So this is a 3 mana 1/3 Nether backline ally. Target enemy. The ally ability, target an enemy creature. Your god takes damage equal to that creature's health. Destroy that creature. So conditional removal. However, the reason why I don't think this is very good is I do not believe ally triggers with the end of turn effects. So Cursed Obelisk, Necroceptors are great cheap Nether generators, and a potential way to make this card really good would be if you had one of those on the board, then played this, and then this becomes a machine gun that wipes your opponent's board out. I could see this being good in that very narrow set of circumstances. But since I do not believe that it triggers that way, it's a trap card. It's a very bad removal type of card that bad players will think it's good because because it's legendary and ooh, it's kind of cool and infinite removal, but it's a 1/3 for 3 mana. If your opponent can't deal with that, then you should win anyways. Next up, we have my favorite artwork in this set. 3 mana for Argus the White Wall. So this is a frontline armor 1 minion, and after a different creature's maximum health increases, this creature's gains the same amount of health. So, you play Holy Writ and this creature becomes immortal. I mean, there's so many situations where this can actually break the internet. And this is going to be one of my more controversial rulings on the internet. To me, this card will get broken. And with the next card, you can almost guarantee that you get it. There's going to be decks built around camaraderie. 4 mana, draw 2 Light Olympians. If a card drawn this way, mana 3 or less, summon it instead. Hey, Argus. So basically, there's going to be some combo list and there's going to be some situations where this just flat out wins. It's another win condition for Control Light. I think this is very, very strong. Because of that, I'm going to go ahead and bring Argus all the way to the top here. It needs a nerf. To me, the potential is just way too strong. For 3 mana, the base stats of a 4-1 with armor is for the front line isn't that bad, and it snowballs way too easily. And because of Argus being very strong, I think that Camaraderie is pretty strong as well. You're only going to run very narrow Light Olympians. This isn't going to be a build your deck around Olympians type of deck. You're going to only run a narrow amount. You're going to guarantee yourself that you're going to get 2 quality, 3 health or less minions out of it, and you're going to get value out of it. And I think in very certain decks, Camaraderie is going to be very strong. Next, we have Shellfire Hatchling. It's a 2-mana, 2/3 dragon. That was the most excited I could get for the card. I'm sorry. If Dragon, when Dragon class Synergy, right? So someone alert Copper Pitch. He'll be really excited about this. He loves dragons. After a card is played, this creature gains +1 strength until end of turn. Yeah, I mean, sure. Maybe there's a way this spirals out of control, but to me, this is just a bad card. Flat out a bad card. Now, bad players are going to like it because it's a dragon. Because of that, no, it's not budget niche. It's just bad players. It's just bad players. I did misclick and almost put it budget niche, which would have been a very nice compliment. Have you ever been lying awake at night being like, man, I wish Magic had Raised Dead, but let's make it only for structures? Well, your wish has come true with this very mediocre owl. Not a superb one. This is a 4-mana, 2/2 Mystic, Elder Strix. Roar, summon a copy of a structure in your void. So you already have to get a structure into your void. There's no real casino metrics for Magic, so I don't see how this card ever gets great value. Your good structure has to already die. This seemed like a really bad card. I'm going to say that not even bad players will try to get this to work. It's just bad. It's just bad. Next up, we've got 3-mana Deception card, Spore Light Lantern. Ability, pull a friendly Nether with mana cost 5 or less from the board to your hand. If you do, pull the top card of your opponent's deck to your hand. Remove 1 durability from this relic. So this, to me, is a hyper-greed control Nether Deception type of card. This is very, very, very weird. And the 5 or less is very, very weird as well. But there's combos that you can have with this. For instance, the Spore Light Lantern combos very well with Shriek Moonlighter, because you can play a 1-mana Nether, bounce the Nether back to your hand with this, and then replay it. You can generate a lot of things. To me, this is kind of something that people are going to kind of meme with. I don't think that better players are going to play this card. I think that it's just not gonna fit, but ultimate greed play, I think people will experiment with it, and I don't think it's horrendous in the right circumstances. I think a budget niche control deception player might be trying to get this to work. So here we have possibly the most obnoxious card of the set. This is a 5-mana Light Relic, 4 health. After a friendly character takes damage, heal it for 1. Roar, give +3 health to a friendly Olympian, and then set its strength equal to its health. So you combine this with the, infinite sized Argus, and you might can get an OTK, like, in certain situations out of it. But aside from that, this card is kind of like Aggro War's worst nightmare. So your hyper aggro zoo aggro decks, every time your character gets hit, you heal for 1. So you subtract 1 from every one of those attacks. offsetting stuff like zombies with all their one attack minions and making them look kind of silly. I think that it's a pretty strong card. The only thing that kind of holds it back is the fact that Ico's gonna be so prevalent in this meta. Everyone's gonna have hard relic removal in their list. So in very hyper specific matchups, this is gonna be very good. Other than that, I think it's iffy. I'm gonna put it in the niche category. I think in tournament play, when you're scouting opponents, this is something you can consider. But outside of that, it is what it is. Next up, we have Divya, the Deadly Serenade. And after a different friendly Amazon deals damage, deal 2 damage to the same target. This is a 5 mana 4/4 Amazon. To me, this is a classic win more card. It's Canopy Spider on steroids, pretty much. And yeah, if you get the memes going and you get like everything to break your way, sure, maybe. But to me, I don't think the best decks are really going to be going for this. Maybe some free-to-play Amazon players will try to get this to work and try to get the perfect meme dream draw. And because of that, I'm going to say it's budget niche. It's not horrendous, but it's very circumstantial. Next up is Fallen Legion. It's a 3 mana 3/3 Nether Roar. If you have 5 or more creatures in your void, summon a Fallen Legion. So I think they designed this with the idea that you were going to be playing this in like a zombie death deck. Otherwise, where else does this really fit? It's got the Nether tribal tag. With the ally mechanics with Nether, there's just not really a way to really exploit this card and really get a large amount of value out of it. To me, it's just circumstantial, and by the time you have 5 minions in your void, usually having 2 3/3s come out isn't that impactful to the game. I think that some free-to-play death players will try to get this to work, so I'm going to put it in the budget niche category, but I don't think it's going to be very strong by top players' perspective. Last, and I don't know, maybe potentially least, is Hortok Fallen Commander. This is a class neutral 7 mana 5/5 Roar. Pick one. Gain Blitz and Protected, or gain Frontline and Leech. And then, whichever one you don't pick, you summon 2 3/3s with the keywords that were not picked. So I think this card is almost good. Almost good. The only thing that's the problem here is 7 mana, so there's a lot of good options at 7. And you can't gain Blitz and Leech at the same time. And I think that's going to be the key for this card. The fact that you can't gain both of those means you can't guarantee heal, which means I don't think that you could run this card at 7. I don't think good players are going to be playing this. People are going to experiment with this card early, think, man, we're getting so much value for 7 mana, but really, I think at 7, you need more. And because of that, I'm going to put this into the either budget niche or only bad players. I'm going to go only bad players. I think this card, not very good. Not very good at all. This is my tier list, everybody. We have completed it. We have these here. We have these here. We have these here. We have these here. We have these here and these here. How do you think I did? What do you think should be in different spots? What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? Yet complain in the comments. If you do not complain in the comments, your complaints will not be heard. Anyways, see you the next time I see you. Bam.